This is the first session in our series all about different transitions throughout early childhood. So I'm going to go through a few announcements and then we will go ahead and get started with the presentation today. We are recording this session for educational and quality improvement purposes. By participating, you are consenting to be recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, please disconnect from the session. This is a community of practice. We really encourage everyone to ask questions and give comments throughout. And in our breakout session at the end of this presentation, to share about where we're all from and just make this a community of practice. So we will start with a didactic speaker. Today we will be having Kaitlyn and Selene presenting, and then we will have a bit of a breakout group discussion on that presentation, and then we will come back in a large group together to share our insights from our breakout groups. We ask that you protect individual privacy. When you're sharing information about anyone else, please avoid using any real first, middle, or last names or any initials. Do not identify anyone and de-identify any examples and situations that you use. It would be super helpful if you could all rename your Zoom profile to your name and your organization, just so that we can all be aware of who you are and where you're from and where you're coming from the state. Throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, you can just go off mute and ask. If it makes you feel more comfortable, you can also raise your hand or send the questions in the chat. Me and Faustine will be moderating the chat to make sure that no one's questions get unseen. You do get a certificate of attendance for attending today's presentation. In order to get that, you just have to fill out the feedback survey and we will send over a certificate to you. The survey link will be sent out a few different times throughout the session today. We'll also email that feedback survey. It's really helpful for us to know what is helpful for you and what other topics we can keep presenting on. We do have a Canvas and a website if you want to access any of our past sessions. In our past series, we have just finished talking about early intervention, and the series before that, we were talking about more of a preschool and childcare. So all of those are on our website, Utah Pyramid Model at the Institute for Disability, and also on our Canvas page. And if you have any difficulty accessing the Canvas page, you can reach out to Faustine. If one of your programs is struggling in any way and you would like feedback from the ECHO community, please reach out to us and we can have you present a Real Situations, Real Solutions presentation just to go over if you need any help with different strategies, if you have a child that you're struggling with, or your program is struggling with implementation of the pyramid model, anything like that, we'd love to have you present. Our next sessions in this series, I just want to go over them real quick. On December 16th, which is the third week, not the fourth week of the month, that will be the infant toddler activity transitions in the classroom. January 27th will be all about special education and preschool's referral blueprint for that. February 24th will be transitioning from early intervention to preschool, and then March 24th will be transitioning to kindergarten. So these might not all be applicable to you, but we highly encourage you to share them to anyone who might be interested in attending these sessions. We hope to see you at the future sessions. We know they're going to be really great. And they're all Monday from 1 to 2:30. So our session presenters today are Kaitlyn. She is an early childhood consultant and mom. And then we have Selene, who is the center director of ABC Great Beginnings in Saratoga Springs. And our session topic today is transitions within childcare. So with that, thank you all for joining us today. Please feel free to reach out to me or Faustine if you have any questions throughout the presentation. And with that, I will turn the time over to Selene and Kaitlyn.
Hi. There we go. Okay, so like she was saying, I'm Selene. I'm the center director at ABC Great Beginnings here in Saratoga. I've been with ABC Great Beginnings for 7 years now. I've been the director at this location for 2. Before that, I was at our Murray location.
Hi, I'm Kaitlyn. Just like Hannah said, I'm an early childhood consultant, so I've helped multiple programs, classrooms hit high quality. I've also helped programs as a whole hit high quality. I work for ABC Great Beginnings, but I also consult for quite a few other centers. But I put the mom on there because I'm really here representing as a mom, and it is my favorite title that I carry, is being a mom to my daughter. So this is also all photos that are in here I have consent for. So I promise I'm not breaking anyone's privacy, right? So this is Aubrey. Aubrey is my daughter. She is currently 21 months old. Aubrey is an only child, and she is extremely silly, sassy, and outgoing. The reason I put these in here is because as we're talking about different transitions and what's kind of brought up this for me, I know that there's so many different temperaments of every single child, what our backgrounds are, all of that is applicable. So just talking about my sweet girl. So a little backstory on why this kind of is coming out altogether. I put Aubrey into childcare when she was, probably 8 months old. I was a little late to the game, had a little bit of anxiety leaving my baby and still have anxiety when I drop her off even to this day. So she came into preschool around 8 months old. And the amount of stress that just brings to a parent is overwhelming, because it's like you're at home and I'm with my only child, and are they going to do everything the way that I want them to do? How is that all going to happen? That's really, really scary. And of course, part of being a parent is understanding that there's multiple different ways to do things. But on top of that, I come from this background of early childhood education. I've been doing this field for 10 years. I have my degree in this field. It is something that I truly love, especially itters. I love those infant, tots, and twos. That is where my heart really lies. So putting her into that class was extremely scary. But what I will say it was scarier was when it was time for her to move up to toddlers. I came into the front office, I mean, like makeup off, fully sobbing my eyes, like, she's not ready to go. She doesn't know how to do any of the things that she needs to do in toddlers. Because what she was going to do was she was going to go from being in a crib all of a sudden to a cot. And my child still now sleeps in a crib at home. So that transition alone felt scary. She was going to go from a high chair to a normal chair, from a bottle to a sippy cup. All of these different transitions were going to happen to her. And I, as a mom, felt like she wasn't prepared. However, I would only know those things because I'm in this field. So that was really scary to me. So we're going to go in depth about each one of these things a little bit more. So let's talk about some transitions. Crib to cot. These are all pictures of my kids. So feel free to be like, oh my gosh, she's so cute in the chat, because I'm pretty obsessed with her. So going from crib to cot. Obviously in that first picture, you're going to see that she is swaddled. She's able to break out. And that was her number one thing, was to suck her fingers. Going from a crib where she's completely swaddled, towards the end of her infant, she wasn't swaddled, she was in her sleep sack, but now having to go to a bed. My number one fear as a parent, as a new mom, was, oh my God, she's gonna roll off, right? Or she is not going to be able to get comfortable. It's not going to feel the same, because we are going from a mattress to something that's going to be a little bit of a different texture. And how are we going to prepare her for that moving forward? The next big one that I will say, I think this was my scariest one. I think this is the one that I was the most fearful of, was going from a high chair to a chair. And the reason for that was she's all locked in, right, in her high chair, and she can't go anywhere. But now she's going to have to really use those core skills and be able to sit up on her own. On top of that, we're having scheduled meals versus having, okay, she can eat when she's hungry, right? And I know there's exceptions to this rule. Obviously, we're encouraging. I know when I'm in a classroom coaching, if the kids express hunger, we feed them, right? But it was different because every kid and infants got to be on their own schedule. They got their milk when they wanted milk. They got their food when they wanted food. So it was so individualized, where now she's starting to be in a group with others, sitting at a table eating. Clearly, as you can see on the picture on the far right, my kid doesn't have any problem eating. She loves to eat, and she's very happy in her chair with all of her real food. Again, just kind of like we're talking about bottle to sippy cup. I'm really grateful because even though this has brought up, this talk of all these different transitions has brought up a lot of new things that ABC does, this specifically was one I never was worried about as much, because I knew that they were going to allow her to have a bottle in that classroom if she needed it. I was exclusively pumped until Aubrey was 14 months old. So that was a really hard transition for me to stop pumping as a mom and then having to wing off those bottles. Now, I definitely have friends who only exclusively breastfeed. So when you're thinking about transitions, how is that going to affect those parents? Because I know from my friends' experiences, their child has never taken a bottle, right? They've only had breast milk on the nipple. So that is a really hard, that's even harder than what I was having to go through. So kind of keep that in mind when you think about that bottle to sippy cup transition, because that is going to affect everybody differently. We have no shoes to shoes. This one, I believe it's licensing. You can't have shoes in the infant classroom. So there wasn't a whole lot of that we could really do to prepare her. I think also keeping in mind, every kid is different. My child has extremely small feet, so I couldn't even find shoes that would fit her that had like a protective sole. So we see her in that left photo under no shoes to shoes. She has no shoes, sitting up, very happy. And then her today, literally today, she's wearing that exact same outfit, surprisingly, wearing her shoes. This also goes to our age range. I remember walking into that toddler room the first day and looking at all those kids and being like, she's small, like she is tiny, compared to these big toddlers. Aubrey specifically, she was not walking by the time she moved up to toddler. She walked about 2 weeks after her first birthday, but she moved up right on, not on her birthday, but yeah, I guess on her birthday. So she moved up really, really quickly. So she was still crawling. She hadn't learned how to walk it. She was just barely learning how to really like figure out her groove in that. And then on top of that, not knowing how to walk, we added shoes into it, which can be really scary because at home I'm thinking, oh, she needs to feel the floor, right? Like that's what I'm reading. I'm this mom that's reading all these things. And now I'm having to put her in shoes. And I know that some programs don't do that. I know some programs have toddlers don't have to wear shoes. I will say now from experience, having her wear the shoes from the get-go was probably the best thing for her. And it definitely makes it easier on teachers when it comes to having to go outside. I think what's unique maybe about my situation, and I know lots of people have probably gone through this, when you are someone who's been a teacher, who's educated in the field, who is constantly coaching in this field, and then you become a mom, it kind of throws a curveball in all of it because I know what's developmentally appropriate. I know how I would coach to it, but all of a sudden it's happening to my kid, and that feels super heightened and super scary. And I imagine how it must feel for moms who don't know what those changes are going to look like. So on the flip side of that, my daughter now she will turn 2 in February. She is now the biggest kid in her class compared to all the little tiny ones. So it's really, I've just recently really seen that shift happen. I know, okay, here's the thing. I know you're all going to look at me and say, well, licensing infants are supposed to go outside. I've been in a lot of programs. It's really hard to get outside when you're with those infants, right? But toddlers, we got walk-in, most of them are walk-in, and we have a few crawlers, and it's way easier to go outside. She has gotten so much more accessibility to different play items than she would have ever had in infants. Obviously in that first picture, I'm like pointing here. In that first picture, she's sitting in her car, being able to drive. So she's working on so many different gross motor skills there. And then the second one, she's going down the slide. I know exclusively from school, she has learned ready, set, go down the slide. So we're also encouraging more language development when we're outside. Here's one that parents may not always know either is ratios. Your ratios go up when you go, and I know most of you guys know this, right? Your ratios go up when you move into toddlers, and then they're going to move up again when you go to 2s. I have these are her 2 little friends that she's been playing with. And to move back kind of towards that last point we were talking about, what's been really hard is that, I'm like getting emotional. All of her friends are now moved up. And so she is now like a lone wolf in her class again. And that is really hard to see because she started to build these really strong relationships with kids where they know each other's names. And there's one sweet little boy here who will go and tap on the door and say, hi, Aubrey, to her. And having that difference is really hard because they start to build these friendships. They start to know these people. And then those friends leave to move up because they're older and she's left. And the big reason I want to bring that up too is when we talk about this communication with parents later on, it's really, really important because my child has had a pretty smooth drop off for the last 6 months, is now experiencing severe anxiety at drop off because when we walk into the classroom, it looks different. All of her friends that were there are not there anymore. And that can give a lot of stress to the parent because as the parent who was feeling like, okay, she's good, everything's great, I'm now leaving like, oh, she's crying again. I'm so sad, right? So when we talk about that communication with parents and things like that, just keep that in mind that those transitions can be happening fluidly throughout the year. So even though she's been in Tots for almost a whole year, she's having 2 pretty big transitions in that room alone. Hopefully that makes sense. We also have new kids, teachers, and rooms. I love these pictures so much. So the first 2 was her infant teacher. Her infant teacher is probably one of the best infant teachers I've ever experienced in my entire career. She is so sweet, so kind towards Aubrey. And when you are a parent and you get pictures like that of your teachers loving on your kid, there's like no better feeling and no better sigh of relief. And then it's also in turn hard because you look at that 3rd picture and that is my sweet girl on her first day in the toddler room. And she is like pretty devastated. She's clearly been crying. And that is really, when you get that, it's definitely a sucker punch. Something I want to speak to as well is I remember very vividly dropping her off in that toddler room and she was crying and I'm walking out and I'm trying not to cry. And I will tell you, the first thing I did is I walked straight into that infant room and those infant room teachers held me while I cried. And they told me she's going to be okay. We got her. We're going to check on her. If you need anything, you let us know. And then I happily walked right back up to the office, cried to the office. They said, we got her. We're going to check on her. We'll let you know if we need anything. But that kind of community within your center, as a parent, I was overwhelmed by how much I felt love for my child and love for me. And I was always met with compassion in those instances. I never felt like, oh my gosh, you're being so over dramatic, right? Because I'm the type of person when a parent drops off and it's hard, I'm like, oh no, they're fine when you leave. Like you should just leave, it's easier. But then suddenly I'm the parent that's lingering for 15 minutes because I can't let go of my kid. Even though I know, Kaitlyn, get up, walk out of the room and it's gonna be okay. Now in that last picture, I have her toddler teachers now, and she, I will tell you, loves them maybe more than she even loved her infant teachers because she can love more now that she's a toddler. She recently got tubes put in her ears, and within an hour of waking up from anesthesia, she literally said that she wanted to go see her toddler teachers. And having that amount of love is really hard. As a parent, when you know she's about 3 months away from going to a brand new environment, where she's going to have new teachers. And I know that the way I felt when I walked into Todd's is the way I'm going to feel when I walked into Tubes of like, do they got her? Do they have this? You have more kids in those toddler rooms. You have more responsibilities. I know most schools try and start potty training around 2 years old. And just new kids that don't know her, which is really, really challenging as a parent because I know that her teachers now, Aubrey could make a sound, any sound, and they would turn around and say, Aubrey needs this, Aubrey needs this. They know when she's going to go to the bathroom. They know when she needs to eat. They know exactly how to put her down properly. And now she's going to have to enter a new setting where it's going to be extremely hard for her to be able to grasp all of those changes yet again that's happening. Oh, I'm not done. Sorry. I have one more thing to say before we go to you. All of that being said, I think the number one thing that made all of these transitions slightly easier for me was, like I said a little bit earlier, the compassion that I was met. I know that I have a pretty resilient child. I know that she's energetic. She's, for the most part, extremely happy. She's an only child. She's pretty spoiled. She gets a lot of what she needs and or wants. And so that is my experience alone, but I challenge you to like think about like your hardest kid, right? And what that family is going through and how those transitions are going to affect them and how you can meet each and every one of them with the same compassion that my team met with me. So that's all I'll leave you with that piece. Any questions on that? Any comments?
I had a question. So
Yeah.
has there been anything that the childcare program had done that you didn't like, that you wish they would know how to change for the future?
Yeah, I mean, man, you're gonna put me on the spot because she's right here. No, I'll say. I was pretty bummed how quickly she was moved up. I think in the moment that was really hard for me, and I'm saying it because so CCQS was coming, and so we needed to have everyone in the correct age groups. And I understood the reasoning, but as a parent, I almost wish that she could have stayed in infants just a tad longer. On the flip side of that, when I did tell them that, and I'm very vocal parent about how I feel most of the time, actually all the time. And Celine's
Very
like,
true.
yep. I don't usually hold back. I'm pretty confrontational, not always in a bad way, not always in a good way. And when I brought that up to them, Celine's solution was, how about anytime I need to blend, I can blend Aubrey back into infants. And for me in the beginning, that was really nice because then they'd be like, she's moving back to infants, and it would kind of be like a sigh of relief for me. And then I remember one day came and I messaged and I said, I think she's okay. Like, I don't think she needs to go back down into infants. And they were like, okay, got it. We're not going to move her anymore. So I do feel like I was met with like, I hear you, here's what we can do, here's how we can meet in the middle. Also, once I did express some of these concerns, it was about 2 weeks before Aubrey turned 1. They did everything they could to incorporate stuff into the infant room. So they brought in a table and chair for her into the infant room so that she could start eating lunch in there. And that made me feel better because I knew she was with people who were going to like really be attentive. Not that her toddler teachers would not be attentive. I just don't know those people, right? So I'm just, I'm thinking about my own. The one bummer, it's not their fault, but licensing doesn't allow you to bring a cot into the infant room. And that was kind of a bummer because I think that was one of my biggest fears was her having to go to a cot just because she's always been in a crib. But that's not necessarily their fault.
Okay. So now, as the childcare provider, Kaitlyn freaked out that we were moving Aubrey up.
And I'll tell you, it was a freak out. I was bawling
Yes.
at the front, like, you listen to me, she's not ready. Also, again, the coach who's like, okay, mom, it's time to go. They're gonna be okay. That went out the window.
Yes. When she freaked out, we realized that we didn't have a way to necessarily explain to parents like the difference from one class to the other than like when they came up and said, okay, so what should I expect? Like, how is this going to look? Or asking the teachers, which a lot of the times the infant teachers are like, I don't know, I'm the infant teacher. So that's when we decided to make transition papers. So that's what we're going to look at. We made transition papers for all of our classrooms and all of our age groups now, but we originally started with the infant to toddler transition because it's the biggest one. So for each classroom now we have these. So for example, we have the classroom changes. So we're giving them the time frame so then they know when to expect. So like right after they turn 1, and give them the age group of the classroom they're going to be moving into. And then we're going over kind of like what their routines are going to look like because they change so much when they go from infants to toddlers. So we're more having the set nap time, we're having the set meals, and that we're going outside. When before it was more individualized. And we do mention that it can be individualized. So for example, I just had a couple of toddlers, infants moved up into toddlers who still need 2 naps a day. So we move them back to infants if they need a nap, if we have space, or we pull a pack and play into the classroom as well during those times. But we're still working on pots during nap time itself from 12 to 2. And then we do mention as well the things that we do to help them get to sleep while they're doing on those cots. So rocking, back patting, playing with their hair, and that they're allowed to bring blankets versus only using sleep sacks, which is a lot of the times parents are very happy about because they want to use their blankets in infants, and we're like, nope, no blankets at all.
I'm the opposite. My kid's still in a sleep sack.
Yes, very true.
So accommodating to both.
Yes, definitely. And then we also talked about going from the bottles to the sippy cups, which like Kaitlyn was saying, we do still allow bottles while we're transitioning into that. We have a couple kids who still do bottles. But we're asking them to start working on using sippy cups as well so that they can get away from that bottle usage.
I think sorry, I'm trying
Go
to
ahead.
get for you, and
You're okay.
if you know me at all, I can't shut up. I just will talk all the time. I think something that's important is that they provide sippy cups if you want them to, but like, if you wanted your kid to have a straw cup, you can also bring that from home. So there's like a lot of give there on what you are able to bring and what they provide.
Yes, absolutely. And we do have down there at the bottom that we have to have the children drinking whole milk by the time they hit 13 months. So if they can start working on it slightly before they're 1, great. If not, we give that whole month of transitioning. And that's for the federal food program as well. Next we have toddlers to twos. So we do have a potty training questionnaire that we give out to our 2-year-olds that are about to turn 2, so that we know if their parents are starting to work on potty training, how does that look, so that we can try and mimic what they're doing at home at daycare, so that we can get them potty trained, and also to kind of show that we're making a partnership versus just them expecting us to just potty train or us just expecting them to get the kids potty trained. And then some of the other things that we go over is that we're following more of a set schedule, even more so than we were when we were in toddlers, to meet CCQS requirements. Nap time's still the same. We still feed them in between if they're hungry. And then nap time, we're still assisting them here and there, but we're trying to get them to self-soothe more. So if they go in the classroom and the kids are crying a little bit, we're trying to let them kind of figure that out on their own. And then we're switching over from whole milk to low milk or low fiber milk, and they're served in paper cups versus in sippy cups, which I know is a big one for a lot of parents. They panic because they're like, well, they're just going to make a mess. And I say, lots of extra clothes. You should be doing it for potty training anyways. So that's a big one that they usually have, and that we are trying to teach them how to use utensils as well if they haven't already been working on them as toddlers.
I'm just curious, sorry.
You're fine, go ahead.
How many of you guys are potty training in your 2-year-old classrooms? Is there like a way, Hannah, we can just have people like answer in the chat and see what that consensus is?
Yeah, if you guys want to put it in the chat or unmute to discuss, either one works. So we have Jamie from A to Z. They potty train in their 2s.
Yeah, I feel like most of the programs I go to, we are potty training in 2s, and I have also seen the trend though where we're getting to 3 and 4 and we're still not having our kiddos potty trained. And so I think the idea behind the potty training questionnaire, like Selene said, is to really build that partnership and educate parents as well, because as my favorite person Amy likes to always say, when you know better, you do better. And so we have a responsibility as the educators to inform parents on different methods that we could use, how we're going to help at home, and just kind of start that conversation. This questionnaire is new to ABC. We just created it. And this came out of me actually coaching in a 2-year-old room where they were like, I just don't know what the parents want with this potty training. So kind of our idea is to send that out to parents right as they turn 2, and then sending it again 6 months in to kind of get a feel, okay, where are we at? What are we feeling? Have we started? What do you think? I personally was a 2-year-old teacher, and I like potty training. I think that I'm pretty good at it. And I think one of those skills is being able to target which kids you know are ready, and the parents that are ready are also going to be the kids that are ready.
Yeah, and then speaking of our non-potty trained kids, we have an early preschool classroom and a preschool classroom. So our preschool classrooms are upstairs and the diaper changing tables are not up there, so we have to have them separate. So our early preschool classroom is the children who are not potty trained. I also sometimes move some of our 2-year-olds up into this early preschool classroom if they're feeling a little bit more advanced, they're kind of bored in 2s. because this classroom is also where we focus more on our curriculum, as well as we add in zoophonics, and Kimochi's, our social and emotional learning. So it's a potty training classroom. Our ratio is a little bit lower. We do it a 1:11. We also do charge a potty training fee if they are 3 and not fully potty trained after a month of being moved into this classroom. So they get a month that we work on potty training even harder with these kiddos. And if they are not at that point, then they get $100 added. This is also where we start doing our assessments, so our peeps and our SRIs and things like that. And we do still do the same kind of things at nap time, where we let them self-soothe and give them an activity if they're not napping. And then the teachers will sit with the children and eat with them and have mealtime conversations. But the biggest difference, I think, is just getting more into that curriculum while we're still potty training in this classroom. And then we also have our choose to preschool or early preschool to preschool. They're pretty similar, because this is after they've finally gotten potty trained while they're in early preschool, or if they are already potty trained once they turn 3, they would go straight up to our preschool classroom. So we have the same kind of curriculum. Really the only difference is from early preschool to preschool is that they are potty trained. So they have to be fully in underwear, having limited accidents, not needing help in the bathroom, so that we can send them off on their own to be able to do that. Other than that, we still do the self-soothing at nap time. They're sitting with their kids at lunch, those kinds of things as an explanation as well for them. And then we also have a preschool to pre-K transition. So this is a little bit more focused on curriculum again, because a lot of the normal basic skills are kind of built up at this point. So we're just really focusing on kindergarten readiness. So we're doing peeps and SRIs again with them now, but it's the 4s 5s one. We're sending them off to the bathroom on their own. They're allowed their own privacy. We're not assisting them unless they are requesting it. We don't do nap time at this age, so this is also a really big one for parents. We stop nap time when they move into our pre-K classroom. They still get a 45-minute rest period where we do like quiet activities, or they can lay on a mat if they want to, but we are not sleeping at all. And sometimes I'll move some 3-year-olds up into this classroom as well if they're at a point where they're not napping and they're feeling a little bit bored or need more of an advancement. They get moved into this classroom early. And then same kind of things for lunch. They're sat with, they have conversations together, but they're also asked to clear their own plates, dump out any remaining things from their meals and things like that. Does anybody have any questions?
Not all at once, guys. Does this feel like, are you like guys like sitting here being like, okay, this is kind of like eye-opening. Wow, I never realized how much of a change there is. Or are you like on the opposite side of like, yeah, we have this totally in place. We communicate great to our parents. I know that a lot of us do CCQS, and I know that one of the parent engagements is like letting people know class changes, right? And we probably all have those little slips that are like, you're moving to this classroom on this day. But that really isn't giving a whole picture perfect view of what that's going to look like for every kid.
Megan in the chat said that I like that you have handouts that are colorful and easy to read and to give to parents.
Yeah, so I send these out during my transitions, but I also have these posted in the classroom. So if anybody comes in and is like, oh, I know my kid's turning this age soon, I can send it to them, but then it's also posted so they're walking past it every day to have a reminder of things that they need to start working on with their kids so that they're ready to transition when it's that time. And then we do send messages out via ProCare to let them know that they're moving up, and give them the little moving up slips with dates so they know the exact time. We usually give them a 1 week or 2 week, like notice before they're going to move up so that they can take a look at those, see if there's anything they're uncomfortable about, meet with us, meet with the new teachers. We'll usually do like a mini little tour to their new classroom and they can go in and meet the teacher, kind of look at the routine and things like that as well.
I love what Megan said too about showing what's developmentally appropriate for parents, because I think that's a great reminder, because again, as this has been my experience and we've been able to build so many great things out of this, I do for the most part know what's developmentally appropriate, right? So going into the classroom, things like that. A transition that's not listed on here, but is now starting to think about it as I think about my own child, is I always like to say my kid's an eater, like eats people, she likes to bite. And that was a hard transition for me as a parent, to be like, what, my kid's biting? Like, what are you saying? My sweet little perfect angel, right? Who is now starting to learn how to stick up for herself, or she's learning boundaries, right? Like that is another transition that we had to get through and kind of work with the center directly to find a way that we could developmentally help her so that she is no longer biting. And as of today, she hasn't bitten in a while, so we're really proud of that. So just saying, those challenging behaviors, those are also going to be hard transitions, because again, sometimes as a parent, I have this idealistic view of my child, because sometimes she is a perfect angel for me at home. And then when I come to school and I see the incident report and I'm like, no, not my kid would never, right? That's another transition and another conversation you're going to want to have. I think ultimately with transitions, what has come out of this for both Selene and I is we just want to build a better partnership with parents and families to keep them educated, but also to make them feel safe when they drop their kids off here and know that their kid is loved by not just like the teacher, but also like the staff.
Yeah, absolutely. And just making sure that we know all of their like individual quirks. So like, I know certain kids are going to struggle with nap time, so I'll go help in that classroom. Or I know certain kids are transitioning, so I go in and tell the teacher, hey, look, it's their first day in your classroom. We want lots of pictures sent to mom and dad today, because I know they're very, very nervous specifically about moving up. While some parents are like, oh yeah, get them into twos, I don't care. And I'm like, okay, we still want to send pictures, but you don't have to be as worried about it. Like they're not stressed. Yes, or I have two specific kids who they have a really hard time with drop off. So I know those two specific kids will come and sit with me and we set a 5-minute timer and we wave bye to mom and dad. And then I take them to class versus their parents just dropping them off straight into class. So we try really hard when it comes to those kinds of transitions to know each individual child's struggles and how to overcome those with them.
That's awesome. I know, like thinking about it, that's the children's whole world for a lot of it. So it's like that's a huge transition for them moving to a different classroom. I wanted to read off a couple other comments from the chat. Jamie said that I like to tour with the parents, the new room, and meet the teachers ahead of time. And then Jenna said, we also tour the parents in the new classroom at least once, if not a few times, with their child before transition. So those are great.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've done that once or twice, but usually the parents are like, can you just show him to me really quick? So, but I like that. That's a good idea to take the kid with them too.
Any other questions, comments, concerns, complaints? Are you sitting here like, yeah, in a perfect world? Alrighty.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Selene and Kaitlyn. That was great. And we will be transitioning over to our case study section of the presentation. If you've attended an ECHO before, it'll be a little different from how we've done it in the past, but I will explain. And it'll be an extension of this presentation that we've been hearing from. So let me pull this up. So at our project ECHO sessions, we want this to be something that's useful and applicable to you all. And so after going through this presentation and hearing about how ABC Great Beginnings has tried to help parents and children with transitions, we want to go into breakout groups and have you discuss how to better do that in your programs. So we ask that you take a minute to introduce yourselves, and we love seeing everyone's faces. So if you're able to, please put your camera on as we're in the breakout groups. And then for the hub members, you don't necessarily need to take notes today. This is just, everyone can personally take their own notes if they want to take anything away from this. But some possible points that you can discuss: how is my program doing at helping children with transitions in childcare and with helping parents be aware of these transitions? Which of these strategies are we already using? Which strategies could be helpful to start implementing? Any questions you have on these strategies? So with that, we will go into our breakout groups, and then after discussing for a few minutes, we'll come back and discuss in the large group what insights we found. And I'll be on here for a minute if anyone has any questions for me.
So Hannah, am I the member then in group 2?
Faustine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you guys.
I hope you're able to have a productive conversation and talk a little bit further about your different programs. And in our last couple of minutes, we're going to end a little early today, but I just wanted to go through and have each group share 1 or 2 insights that they discussed. So Kurt, if I can put you on the spot, if you could start with our group, and then Chelsea, and then Faustine, who was in the last group? Oh, and then Amy. So we'll go Kurt's group, Amy's group, and Chelsea's group and Amy's group.
So I'll speak a little bit. Anybody in the group, feel free to speak up. We talked a lot about making sure the parents are prepared for those transitions so that it is a smoother transition. Obviously preparing the kids and helping them to meet. I think one of them said that they'd meet the kids in the older class and the younger class together to kind of help them get familiar with it to make that transition. And then also just to make sure parents are on board and understand the process, and that it's something that isn't uncommon to have difficulty in that transition process.
All right, in our group, we talked a little bit about how the transitions are not just based on like an age, but based on developmental need. So I was just saying, in like school districts, we have to follow that school year date, which is such an arbitrary date, but some of the programs have a little more flexibility where they can say, like, maybe you're 1, or you're not quite ready to go to a toddler group yet because developmentally you'll just be bowled over or something. So like talking with that parent and making sure they kind of understand the developmental need of moving, and just preparing parents as well.
Thank you. And then Amy, do you want to go with your group?
Yeah, so we talked about the importance of making sure that we're writing information down for families. When they come in the morning and they're dropping their child off, or after they've worked their long day and they're getting their child and they're anxious to get home, for them to have to go back and remember all of the information that, from that conversation, that just having that form to refer back to. So our group really loved the form that you guys shared, Selene, and notice like how helpful that could be for parents.
Absolutely. I know for me, I'm a visual person, so I need to have everything written down in front of me. I can't just hear it for it to stick. Well, any last comments before we close out for today? Anyone want to share any other insights? Well, thank you all for joining us today. It was really great. Thank you again to Kaitlyn and Selene. And just a reminder, our next ECHO session will be on December 16th. We'll be talking about transition activities in the classroom. So this will be from snack time to playtime, or transitioning between groups. So we really hope you can all join us December 16th, and have a great rest of your day.